Hey folks, this is JR with DIY Prepper. Welcome to the channel. A lot of the time when I buy preps and survival gear, I don't go out and buy either the best or most expensive stuff. I was on a teacher's salary for around 10 years, so my family knows what it's like to be on a budget, and sometimes it was pretty tight. So what I tend to do is I try to find something decent that'll get the job done, but also doesn't cost a whole lot of money. That allows us to keep our budget in check, and then it also allows us to buy other things that we need in other areas. For example, you're going to have a lot more money to buy food if you don't, say, spend $300 on a fancy survival knife. So today we're going to talk about 15 good yet budget-friendly pieces of gear. You can find most of these for $20 or $30. Some of the stuff is a little bit more expensive than that, but all of these are going to be solid performers. And the first piece of gear that we'll talk about today is a butane stove. These are a very cost-effective way to cook pretty much anything that you would need to. They usually cost around $20 or $30 on the low end. You can get more powerful, more expensive versions than that, but the entry-level models are pretty cheap. And what's nice about them is that you can use them just like your regular stovetop. You can use them to boil like large pots of water, and then if you have, say, a cast iron grill pan, you can even do things like grill steak or chicken. And they also burn a little bit cleaner than propane, so that makes them like marginally safer to use indoors. Of course, anytime that you use a stove or anything like that, you're going to want to have adequate ventilation. You're going to want to have things like carbon monoxide alarms, but the fact that it burns cleaner just makes it inherently a little bit more safe. And these are also very easy to use. Just plug in your butane can, turn it on, and then you're good to go. And even if the electronic ignition doesn't work for some reason or another, you can always use a lighter instead. Next up is an alcohol stove, and where you have your butane stove that's good for home use, your alcohol stove is going to be very good for use away from home. Like if you want a cooking method to keep in your bug out bag, this is going to be very good for that. You can usually find these for under $20, and they're going to work really well for boiling small quantities of water. Maybe you need to purify it, like you have a filter, you're afraid there could be viruses, you can boil those out. Or maybe you're just trying to cook like a mountain house meal and you need something to heat up your water. It works very well for that. These are a good choice for things like bottle or canteen cook sets, and they also work well in stick stoves like the Solo Stove Light and then the Firebox. One thing that's very nice about these is that they can use multiple fuel types. They can use denatured alcohol, which is probably what most people would use, but you can also use other things like isopropyl alcohol that you have in your medicine cabinet. You can also use yellow heat or even Everclear if you're all boozy and everything. But if you're really short on money, you don't even have to buy one of these. You can make your own out of a couple of Coke cans. I showed how to do that in some videos a while back, and I may link to that at the end of this video. Then getting into the cutting tool side of things, the first thing that we have is a Fiskars hatchet. And these are a very good middle ground option. You have some cheaper ones that maybe aren't as good. You have some more expensive ones that are great, but this is durable. It splits well. And also, I mean, it's pretty sharp and it holds an edge. You can get these for around $35 or $40 most of the time. And I've used mine a little bit, around the house. I've also used it on camping trips. Like, this is what we used to help build our campfire when we went camping at the Grand Canyon earlier this year. Now, normally I like to pair my Fiskars hatchet with my BK16 that y'all see hanging behind me in a lot of my videos, but the prices on those Becker knives have gone up a lot. So if you're looking for an inexpensive but very good bushcrafting knife, then the Mora Companion it's hard to go wrong with them. These are available pretty much all day, every day for under $20. Last time I checked, they were around like $16. And you can get them in either stainless steel versions like this one or also carbon steel. So stainless is going to be a better choice for wet tasks, things like food prep and then also game processing. Then your carbon steel is going to be good for carving, bushcraft, and those sort of tasks. And one good thing about these is that even though they're not full tank, they're still pretty durable. I've seen people do destruction tests of these and they held up very well. They also can get screaming sharp. The sheath that it comes with is just kind of a little plastic deal. It does come with a drain hole, but even though it's not the fanciest thing, it's not the worst thing in the world either. I got this for game processing. So, you know, after I shoot a deer, cleaning it, things like that. And I wanted stainless steel because I wanted something that the blood wouldn't rust so easily. And the sheath, I mean, I could just chuck it in a sink, clean it off, and not have to worry about messing it up, which, I mean, that's nice in its own right. The next cutting tool on the list is the Kershaw Cryo, and this is a very good choice if you're wanting a solid, budget-friendly folding knife. I got this as my primary EDC a few years back. It was at a time when our budget was a little tight. I couldn't afford something like a ZT or a Spyderco, so I carried this, and it worked really well. Has a solid lockup. You can't hardly feel it wobbling in any direction once the blade's deployed. Has a good, beefy frame lock. The only gripes that I have about the knife are the steel choice and then also the type of grind that the blade is. The steel, it's not bad. It's just kind of a, you know, just little Chinese stainless steel. It's not terrible, but it doesn't hold an edge for very long. And then also the grind of the blade is a hollow grind, which is just sort of a cheap and easy thing for the manufacturers. It's not going to cut as well as something like a full flat grind, and it's not going to be as strong as something like a saber grind will be. Now, if you're going to have knives, you're also going to need a way to keep them sharp, and that's where the Spyderco Sharp Maker comes in. This is by far the most expensive thing on the list, but the reason why I went ahead and put it in this video is that it's not going to damage your blades like the cheaper little pass-through knife sharpeners will, and it's also a lot cheaper than something like a Wicked Edge. This will get knives screaming sharp in just a couple of minutes. I use it to touch up all of my knives, and how it works is it comes with two sets of sharpening stones, one medium, one fine, and then also a base that can hold those stones at either a 30 or 40 degree angle. And to sharpen it, all you do is just set your stones up and then pass the blade over each stone, just alternating back and forth. And you can get your knife sharpened in, I'm probably really less than like 5 minutes doing that. So it's very fast and it works extremely well. The stones, they're also easy to clean. All you need to do is use something like a magic eraser and some water, and then it'll clean all of that stuff right off. Now, you can also get some additional stones for this. Like you can get diamond or cubic boron nitride stones for light reprofiling or repairing damaged edges, or you can get extra fine stones if you want to get something ridiculously sharp. The last of the cutting tools that we'll talk about today is the pocket chainsaw. As you can see, it's very compact. This will fit in pretty much any kit or glove box that you have, and it's a lot better than those little dorky wire saws that come in the prepackaged survival kits that'll actually probably get you killed. But it's made of a real chainsaw chain, so it's going to cut very good, going to cut very fast. And other things like the handles are very durable. They're made of a nice solid nylon material and they're well stitched. You can use this either at ground level for just normal like cutting down like branches or trees, but you can also use it overhead if you attach it to a rope. But if you do that, be very, very careful because the last thing that you want to do is drop a branch on your head. Of course, you know, unless you like concussions or something like that. Now, before we go any further, I would like to let y'all know that I've been nominated for a Gundy Award. It's sort of the viewers, voters' choice thing for the firearms industry and then also for preppers and things like that. If you would like to vote for me, I was nominated for the most likely to survive the apocalypse, which is kind of cool. But if you want to vote for me, I will put a link for that in the description below, and you can vote every day. You can also do a couple things to get extra votes, like visit sponsor web pages and then things like that. But if you do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, getting into some winter preps, the first thing that I have is the Zippo hand warmer, and this is a very good alternative to those like little disposable hand warmers, because if you use those a lot, you're going to blow a ton of money on them. This just runs on regular lighter fluid, and it can run for up to 12 hours on one fill. It comes with a little measuring bottle that you'll use to fill it up, and after you fill it, just light it and then put it back in its bag. It's really nice to have for power outages, hunting trips, maybe you're kids or grandkids' football games, or any other time that you're stuck having to deal with the cold. Then after that, I have an emergency candle. These work well for like if you get stranded in your car or for power outages. It's not gonna really give you a ton of heat, but it can help a little bit. It has 3 wicks on it. You can either burn them individually or all at once. Each one should last for 12 hours, so if you burn 1 wick at a time, that'll give you 36 hours. If you burn them all at once for extra heat, then that'll just be 12. But I have kept this in my truck all year long in Texas. So what that means is as long as you keep it upright, you probably shouldn't have to worry about it leaking. It doesn't look like it is melted any at all. So, I mean, if that's a concern, you know, not wanting to keep a candle in your vehicle, I get it because of the heat. But at least in my case, where it gets really honking hot, didn't have to worry about this melting. So that's a good thing. Now, when it comes to water, if you're wanting a cheap but effective filter, it's hard to go wrong with the Sawyers. The Sawyer Mini is nice because it's very compact, and you can also use it in a lot of different ways. You can use it as a straw, you can use it with its included bags, and you can also even attach it to different types of water bottles. They do need to have the larger, like 2-liter style threads on them, but there are some smaller water bottles that have those. I think Smart Water does. But these will remove bacteria, protozoa, microplastics, and sediments, which is most of what you would need to be worried about, especially in a more backcountry setting. This is going to struggle in urban environments because it's not going to remove viruses, and it's also not going to remove chemicals. So if you use these, it is important to understand those limitations, but it will take care of the vast majority of the things that you could reasonably expect to deal with. Then another good budget-friendly way to treat water is a canteen and stove kit. This here is just kind of a more budget-friendly version of like the bottle cook set that I've shown in other videos. You can wear it on your belt. Like here's a little just kind of milsurp style canteen pouch. And here I have my canteen, which is a Nalgene Oasis. This is, my goodness, that's stuck. This is an upgraded version of the little green canteens that you can taste as you're drinking your water. This won't do that, and it's also pretty stinking tough. The cup here is actual U.S. military surplus from the 80s, and then the stove is just kind of a modern reproduction. As you can see, the stove and the cup don't really fit together that well. I think if I had one with the 2 folding handles on the side, it might work a little bit better. But what's nice about this is that it can use multiple fuel types. You can use solid fuel tablets. I believe that's actually what the little pouch on the front of this is for, is to hold 1 or 2 of those. But you can also use things like your alcohol stove, which is nice. Then, of course, you can use natural materials like sticks. But having one of these will allow you to boil water to remove bacteria, protozoa, and even viruses. Now, moving on to some more tech-related items, the first thing that I have is an Anchor power bank. These are available in a lot of different capacities and price points. This is just a little cheap $20 one, but they work really well for charging cell phones, flashlights, and other USB electronics. And they can also fit in pretty much any kit that you have. They're small, compact, they're pretty thin if you get the right ones. And also, if you pair them with like a small set of solar panels, you basically have yourself a makeshift miniature solar generator. I've shown that in a few other videos, and I like to keep it in a Faraday bag to protect it from like a potential EMP. Next up, I have the Baofeng GT5R, and this is just a very inexpensive compact ham radio. You'll be able to pick up and transmit on ham radio frequencies. Of course, you'll need a license while society's up and running. Let me get that mess out of the way. But you can also do other things like pick up FM or NOAA weather frequencies. So for something this small and this cheap, it has a whole lot of capability. So I wanted to be sure to put it on here. Then after that, we have some lights by Energizer. I've shown this lantern a couple times here recently, but this was under $20. I think sometimes if it's on sale, you might be able to get it for $15, but it's 500 lumens, can run on either AA's or D cells, and it can also recharge devices. Another kind of neat thing about it is the buttons on the front, they glow in the dark. So let's say you're camping, you think that you're ready to go to sleep, turn everything off, and then your kid says, "Daddy, potty." Well, the buttons glow in the dark, so you'll be able to find them without fumbling around too much. So I really like this. The Energizer makes some really good but cheap lights. I have, my Streamlight Siege, which is very good, but it was, around $35. This one, I mean, I use it probably more than I use the Streamlight now. It's just, it's very good for its price. And then Energizer also has some headlamps. This one is their rechargeable. When I used this last night, when I had to go get the Christmas decorations from the attic, and it lit up the entire attic. It worked really good if you need light just up close, but it has 3 settings. It has kind of a high, a medium, and then I guess that's a low setting, but it also has red lights. Like it has red solid, red flashing, and then it also has green. So the red is very nice if you're somebody who hunts. Maybe you're trying to get to your deer stand, trying to kind of keep a low profile, not let the entire woods know that you're out there. That's a good time to use that red light. Now, of course, these aren't the only preps and survival gear that you would want to have. So if you want to see a list of other things that you would actually use during an emergency, then click here. Or if you want to see some prepper hacks, including how to make an alcohol stove out of soda cans, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.